Hello and welcome back to the David67 Celtic News YouTube channel. Today's couple of videos are going to be a slight change from the usual format to see really whether there's a interest in these sorts of videos among Celtic fans and football fans. And as the title of the video indicates, we're going to look at a couple of my favourite strikers from the 1970s when I started to support Celtic, Paul Wilson and Harry Hood, and we'll have a wee chat regarding my memories of them, some of their achievements, their stats, and also some video clips of goals that they scored. These are slightly restricted by copyright reasons and the fact that there are a very limited number of video clips available on the internet and via YouTube. Before we do crack on with the video, please do, if you are new to the channel and like the channel and this sort of video about some great players from Celtic's history, please do click that subscriber button. There's a great variety of different sorts of videos on the channel, plus other features like polls and quizzes, and coverage of all aspects of the Celtic club. If you do like the video, please do click that like button as well, and comment section open for your thoughts regarding the topic of the video, the two players, Paul Wilson, Harry Hood, and your own memories of them, and any other related stories. So Paul Wilson and Harry Hood were both in the Celtic team when I started to support them in the early 1970s, and some of my early best Celtic memories of the club involve both those two players. They weren't my absolute favourite player of that time. My absolute favourite player of that time is over my shoulder. A couple of pictures there of Kenny Dalglish, who was my absolute hero right at the start of supporting Celtic. However, Paul Wilson and Harry Hood, and the topic of the next video, John Dixie Deans, were different types of players and very different from footballers of current times. They were full of character, not the most fit-looking players, but provided me and millions of Celtic fans hours and hours and years of enjoyment. So, looking at the first player, Paul Wilson. Paul Wilson, interesting player, born in India. His father was serving in the services over there. Father was of Scottish and Irish heritage. His mum was of Dutch, Portuguese, and African heritage. And Paul Wilson went on to be the second player of colour to play for Scotland at international level, and did actually experience a lot of discrimination and racism throughout his career, particularly from our big rivals across the city. However, turning to happier times, Paul Wilson has a Celtic career of 214 games, 52 Celtic goals. He had one cap for Scotland, which does seem rather surprising given how good he was. He primarily played through the middle, but he also often played out wide on Jock Stein's teams, as at that time Celtic did have a rather embarrassment of riches of strikers in the early to mid-70s. Players like Kenny Dalglish, Harry Hood, Paul Wilson, Lou Macari, John Dixie Deans, and others. Paul Wilson played for Celtic from 1967 to 1978. He also played in his career for Motherwell and Partick, but retired aged 29, having won 7 trophies as a Celtic player. Retiring at 29, he had quite significant problems coping with being a footballer, losing his mother, and other related issues, and is said to be Kenny Dalglish's best friend from Celtic at that time, and the two of them remain close throughout the rest of Paul Wilson's life. One of my strongest memories of Paul Wilson was when he scored a double in the 1975 Cup final win over Airdrie, a game that Celtic won 3-1. Wilson scored the first 2 goals for Celtic that day. Later in the game, Celtic did get a penalty kick to put themselves 3-1 up, and very honourably and in a great team spirit way, Paul Wilson turned down the opportunity to score a hat-trick and allowed Pat McCluskey instead to score the penalty that put Celtic 3-1 up. Just going to pop in some highlights of Paul Wilson's goals for Celtic. So do enjoy those highlights, and after the highlights we'll move on to one of my other favourites of the time, Harry Hood. Moving on to Harry Hood. Harry Hood was a different kind of character, a much more gregarious, funny, fun-loving player. Paul Wilson tended to be quite a quiet, serious man within the Celtic team. Harry Hood went on to be a fairly successful businessman after retiring as well. He also turned his hand to management. Harry Hood played for Celtic from 1969 to 1976. He was signed from Clyde for £40,000, so a fairly large transfer fee in those days. Stories suggest that he actually could have been a Celtic player a few years earlier when first playing for Clyde, but coming to sign for Celtic would have meant giving up his other job, and so he instead chose to go down and play for Sunderland. Didn't have a successful time at Sunderland, and so came back to play for Clyde, and then moved on to Celtic in 1969 for £40,000, and spent the rest of his career up to 76 at Celtic. He also played for San Antonio in America, being a player of the year over there. Also played for Motherwell and Queen of the South. His career stats for Celtic: 312 games, 123 goals for Celtic, and won 11 trophies as a Celtic player, and also had 3 caps for Scotland internationally. And again, quite a surprise that a player as prolific as 123 goals for Celtic, only ended up with 3 international caps. Harry Hood has the honour of being one of very few Celtic players to score a hat-trick against Rangers, and it was quite a number of years until Moussa Dembele accomplished the same feat for Celtic. And so Harry Hood goes down in history as one of the few players to score a hat-trick against our big rivals. A couple of big memories for me with Harry Hood, one of which is scoring the first goal in the cup final against Dundee United, a game that we won 3-0 in 1974. I was at that time staying with my grandparents in Glasgow. They had a house very, very close to Hampden Park, and so one of my early memories was watching out of the upstairs windows at Granny and Grandad's as all these Celtic fans dressed in the Celtic shirts and flags, etc., walked along the road towards Hampden Park, singing and cheering and chanting, and then on the way back, singing and cheering and chanting even louder. And I was able to watch that game live on television. And Harry Hood opened the scoring with a wonderful header. Also, one of my memories watching on old Celtic videos was Harry Hood scoring the winner in the cup final replay against Rangers, a game that we won 2-1. He converted a penalty after Jimmy Johnson was rugby tackled in the box to get Celtic a penalty that put us ahead in the game, and a lead that we carried on to maintain to win the game. Similar to Paul Wilson, Harry Hood scored a lot of goals for Celtic. However, very few are available in a copyright-free suitable format to incorporate into this video. So we'll pop in a wee highlight reel of some of Harry Hood's goals for Celtic, including that cup final replay penalty kick and also the opener in the cup final against Dundee United back in 1974. So enjoy those, and then we'll finish off just one or two wee thoughts regarding the two players and a preview of the second video in this series, which will be about John Dixie Deans. Hopefully you enjoyed those wee reminders of two of Celtic's great players of 50 years ago. If these videos do prove to be popular, I am looking to do similar videos for some of my favourite players of the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and so on up to present day, within the bounds of what's available and free to use with copyright, etc., via YouTube and the internet. So that finishes off this first video of the day. Second video will be following later on about another great favourite of mine from that time, John Dixie Dean's. To finish off, just if you have enjoyed the video, please do click that like button. If you enjoy this sort of video and enjoy the other videos on the channel, please do click that subscriber button. Keep the numbers pushing up to 1050, and do pop your comments into the comment section, your own thoughts and memories of Paul Wilson and Harry Hood, and general thoughts regarding this style of video. And so until the next video, a goodbye and hail, hail.